by the current government, and new laws have been enacted in that regard. And these new laws, along with the other measures around the reforms, because the reforms are beyond taxes, that's why our committee is called Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. There are various reforms around government spending, government debt management, coordination of policies, but the focus for this particular meeting is the tax reform laws. There are 4 of them. One is the Nigeria Tax Act, which is the law that tells you the taxes you need to pay. Second one is Nigeria Tax Administration Act. It tells you who administers the taxes. The third one is the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Act. This is the law that is replacing the FRS Establishment Act to be more reflective of the role of the FRS. It's not collecting revenue for the federal government. So its current name that says Federal Inland Revenue Service is a misrepresentation of the role of the FRS. They collect taxes for the federation. In addition to that, their role is being expanded, so they will be the sole agency collecting all revenues, taxes, and levies for the federation and for the federal government. Please pay attention to that. There are some monies that go into the federation account, like companies' income tax, petroleum profit tax, royalty. They'll be collected by only the Nigerian Revenue Service. This does not mean that taxes belonging to the states, like personal income tax, will be collected by the NRS. No. States will continue to collect their own taxes. But as part of the reform as well, the provisions of the new laws require that even at the state level, only the state internal revenue service should collect taxes and levies. We do not want a state having 15, 20 agencies trying to collect revenue. It creates a lot of confusion, inefficiency, and sometimes avenue for corruption. So the number 4 law is the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act. This is the law establishing what we currently know as the Joint Tax Board, with a broader mandate to help coordinate and enhance collaboration amongst revenue authorities across Nigeria. This will be the platform for them sharing information, ensuring that there's integrity of data and tax intelligence, ensuring that there's cooperation, and ensuring that an individual who pays taxes in the state where they are residents and where they work will not have to pay taxes just because they are moving around to do other businesses or trying to buy assets like land, which is what we currently have. We have seen a number of misinformation, especially on social media, relating to the tax laws, whereas the objective of these new tax laws are very clear. The objectives are to reduce the tax burden on the masses, to harmonize and simplify tax rules by addressing multiplicity of taxes, to promote a modern, business-friendly, and globally competitive tax system for their country, Nigeria. So the approach that we have adopted in formulating and now implementing the law has been people-centric, focusing on people, growth-focused, and efficiency-driven. Some of the highlights of the new tax laws include on personal income tax, exempting low-income earners, including people who earn minimum wage, completely from paying PAYE, personal income tax. The middle class will pay less tax. They will see from January that their payee tax will reduce, therefore their take-home pay would be increased. And then for the high net worth individuals, they will then pay a little bit more, which is similar to what you find in many countries. And relatively, Nigeria's top tax rate for high income earners under the new law of 25% compares favorably with the equivalent of 35% in Ghana, 35% in Kenya, and up to 45% in South Africa. Another one is value-added tax. Under the new tax laws, basic consumptions like food, education, and health services, the VAT have been removed, not only on the final products, but also in the process leading to the production of those goods and services. For small businesses, they will no longer need to charge VAT if their annual turnover is 100 million naira or less. Businesses will be able to claim input VAT when they buy assets and when they incur overhead for the purpose of their business. This will bring down the cost for those businesses. Altogether, the personal income tax would enhance the take-home pay of the Nigerian people. The VAT will reduce the cost of their basic consumption. The combined impact will mean better living standard, higher purchasing power, and more spending by the individuals and household, which on the other hand can also help stimulate growth for businesses. When people have more ability to buy, businesses have reasons to produce more. When they produce more, they can hire more people, and then the economy just grows in that circular manner. We also have another issue around tax ID. The tax ID is not new. The requirement to provide tax identification number to operate a bank account for business purposes was introduced in 2019 Finance Act, and it took effect from January 2020 and has been in place since then. The new tax law has only now introduced a tax ID, which is not a new identity, but a nomenclature to harmonize all the current identities we have within the system. So if you already have a TIN, you do not need to do anything. That qualifies as your tax ID. If you have a bank account and you're not using it for business, you don't need to do anything. Operate your bank account. But if you use it for business, you don't have a TIN, then you need to obtain a TIN that serves as your tax ID going forward. It is not true that bank accounts will be blocked and inflows will be taxed from January. This is not anywhere stated in the law. Of course, if you do not comply with the requirement to operate your bank account, your bank will make a decision as to whether you can continue to operate with them or whether you need to close it and go elsewhere. We also have issues around the informal sector. The informal sector is the largest part of our economy, and therefore we believe that they should be protected because many of them are vulnerable. Part of the provisions and protection under the new tax law is the establishment of the Office of the Tax Ombudsman. We call it the Ombuds because we want to be gender sensitive. It can be a man or woman. Such that if you operate your informal business and you are being harassed, you don't need to speak English, you don't need to write official letters, you can just call and speak your language, and there's now a structure being created by the government for help to be on the way. Nobody will come and just seal up your business premises for taxes that may not even be due and payable by you in the first place. These informal sector businesses would also enjoy a lot of exemptions, and the new tax law is providing an incentive for them to formalize their businesses. If you register your enterprise or one-man business or one-woman business or whatever it is as a company, you then enjoy the 0% corporate tax rates up to 100 million turnover per year. The good news also is that the Corporate Affairs Commission a few days ago has just announced that they're going to register up to 250,000 new companies for small businesses free of charge. So all that people just need to do now is just take step. Register your company for free and then enjoy the tax benefit. And formalization has a lot of benefits beyond revenue for government. It allows you to position yourself to be more organized, well-governed, open to investment, ability to scale, and grow, which is not only good for you, it's also good for our economy. On tax harmonization, this has been an area of interest to Mr. President from day one. As he mentioned during his inaugural speech, that we need to address issues around multiplicity of taxes. This is now being addressed. I have not said these have been addressed. Some of the multiple taxes have already been addressed in the new tax laws. But there are so many other taxes and levies, particularly those that are collectible at the local government and state levels, that we could not address by enacting new tax laws. The reason being that those taxes and levies are contained in the Constitution as being the right of the local government and the state government to collect, impose and collect those taxes. To pass a law to say that they can no longer collect will be unconstitutional. Therefore, in addition to the taxes that have been harmonized in the new tax reform laws, there's still an ongoing process to address this multiplicity of taxes in the Constitution itself. But as you agree with me, amending the Constitution is never a straightforward process. But the good thing is within our control as a people, and the process has started. The last one I want to mention is to do with the narrative in many quarters that the Tinubu's administration is just about imposing taxes on people and increasing their tax burden. The facts is actually to the contrary. It is that this current government has repealed, suspended, or reversed many taxes that were previously introduced, including excise tax on telecommunication, that's airtime and data, including suspension of carbon tax on single-use plastic, including suspension of excise tax on vehicles, including the reversal of cybersecurity levy, which was introduced in a law by the previous administration, and so on and so forth. And this government, as well as the new tax laws, have not imposed taxes on anyone who was not liable to pay tax previously. Whether they are influencers, online content creator, whether it's cryptocurrency, or any activity that you do that you generate income, these activities, as we speak today, under the old laws, are already taxable. The only issue is that these reforms is raising the level of awareness for the Nigerian people, such that many people are only just finding out for the first time that they were supposed to pay tax. Those taxes are not new. Based on the law, if you earn any income, you have to pay tax on it. Otherwise, it will be unfair to those who are in paid employment. Why should they be the one paying taxes, and someone who is generating money online is not paying tax? It's still income they are generating. So it's important to note that these new tax laws have not imposed taxes on people who were not previously liable to tax. What we're doing now is providing clarification, providing the education, and putting measures in place to ensure that anyone who needs to pay tax does not evade paying those taxes. Because allowing tax evasion to continue is to be unfair to those citizens who are doing their best to pay their taxes. The admonition or the encouragement to you is that please make sure you get information from credible sources. We have the information available on our website, fiscalreform.ng. We have it on our various social media platforms. We have the dedicated YouTube account. We have an email account, a WhatsApp number. You can engage with us, and also many other credible sources where you can see analysis that you can rely on. So we will share more information with you, today and then subsequently. So to the second press release, in connection with the discussion we just had now on the new tax reform laws, we believe that if we encourage journalists, reporters, influencers, and public analysts to report with objectivity, with credibility, and with honesty, it would also not be out of place to reward them for doing so. And by the way, we are not asking journalists to report in favor of the reforms. We're just saying report honestly, report objectively. If you want to criticize, criticize constructively so that your reports are accurate. So in that regard, our committee, the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, has decided to unveil what we call Excellence in Tax Reform Reporting Award. For this award, it will be open to journalists who are in Nigeria and report on these tax reforms. The period to be covered will be reports from 1st of July 2025 to the 31st of December 2025. So if you have written before, it will be eligible. If you write going forward, it will be eligible. And the Nigerian journalists that can apply cut across print, broadcast, online platform, as well as digital influencers, bloggers, and podcasters. Submissions can be done for works in English language, Pidgin, Hausa, Igbo, or Yoruba. Should your work be in any language other than the English language, you would also submit it with a translation so that it's easy for us to make some comparison. If you want to submit a video or podcast, you please trim it down to not more than 10 minutes. You know where the key messages are, and you can extract them. The award will be done early 2026, so we give you time to write until December. And the first prize will be 10 million naira. Second prize will be 5 million naira. Third prize, 3 million naira. And the top 20 finalists, other than the top 3 winners, will receive consolation prizes of 1 million naira each. And with plaques, we're also trying to get some sponsorship. We may be able to give gadgets. In addition to that, training fellowship may also be provided. We want it to be worthwhile for you to do the right thing, be recognized and be rewarded in doing so. The evaluation criteria will be submissions will be judged on the basis of accuracy and technical correctness, balance and fairness. So if you start writing everything to say this reform is the best thing since sliced bread, you will not win. Okay, so that's not what we're asking you to do. You must be balanced. Because for us as well, we're looking for feedback on areas where we can do better. Clarity and accessibility. This is not the place to write how good your English is with grammars, and just keep it simple. Note that you are speaking to the Nigerian people. Okay. Then public engagement and reach. Don't write an article or a blog post and keep it to yourself. Share it so that the public can access it. And then we're also interested in creativity and innovation. It could be to do infographics. It could be to do, an avatar of, 2 people having conversation. It could be to find Iya Sikira, Mama Musa, or Iya Emeka. So just something that is creative to connect with the people. Because we are a large country, over 200 million people. There are people who don't even know there's a tax reform in Nigeria today as we speak, right? And these things will impact them. So we need the power of many. And you hold a lot of power. We need you to help us project it honestly, constructively, accurately, so that the Nigerian people can benefit. So when we are done with all this assessment, by the way, the panel will be balanced. You even have journalists will be there, experts will be there, people with tax practice knowledge will be there. We're also looking at having development partners also join us, so you can be sure that the assessment process will be fair, it will be balanced. When we are done with that, there will be an award gala where we would invite the top 20 finalists, and that's where the awards will be given to the top winners and the consolation prizes. We're planning to be able to even stream that, live, or maybe even cover it, on TV live as a big event, also to recognize the excellent work that our journalists and reporters do. So, for more information on this, you see already in the press release, you can reach out to us via email or WhatsApp, as well as you can follow developments in this space on our website and social media accounts. So that is what we have for you today, and now we'll be able to take some questions. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for reminding me. So we had planned to give you copies of the new tax laws. Unfortunately, they are not ready. They promised that they were going to deliver to us before we finish today, but they are not ready. So this is a copy, for example. You have all the 4 tax laws, printed nicely. So we would, if you give us your address, we will send you a copy once they are ready. Hopefully tomorrow. Okay. So we'll send to you, because while you can use the soft copy, we know sometimes as well this can be a good bedtime reading. And you can mark it, with those areas that will be important to you. So that helps us to make sure that we are empowered to do our work. So thank you for reminding me, my brother. All right, questions now.
Okay, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this forum. So I'm Chioma Obinagwam. I write for Confiance News, an online platform. My question borders on the business name that doesn't generate up to 100 million naira in revenue and then has a tax ID, which is a TIN. Do you still need to upgrade to a limited liability company to enjoy the exemption? Because another question borders on what I've been here, because we are like the front line. We deal with people. So people are scared that these laws will be politicized. There will be sacred cows at the end of the day. And I see that as a gap. So how do you intend to address that? Thank you.
All right. So we would answer each question as you ask them, because if you are recording, so you can take that bit as you may need it. And members of my committee can also come in if they want to add anything. So your first question is, I have a business name. It's not incorporated with CAC, or it's incorporated but it's not a limited liability company. So my turnover is less than 100 million. Would I enjoy the incentive? Okay. So do I need to upgrade? So the way the law is, the way it works is that a company is seen as a person in law that has to pay taxes. So if you have not incorporated your business as a limited, and the other forms of limited liability companies, if you have not operated it, registered it like that, you will not be able to enjoy the company income tax rate of 0%, because company income tax rate does not apply to you. In that case, for your business name or your enterprise that is not even registered as a business name, the regime that will apply to you is the Informal Sector Presumptive Tax. So that has some level of exemption for small businesses, but not up to the level for a company. So I would advise that if you can, just register a company. Your second question of whether these reforms might be politicized. So there's no one who sets out to say, let's write this reform so we can catch some politicians. There will be no need to write the reform. They could easily use the existing laws. In fact, the existing laws are easier for you to find someone you want to deal with than the new ones. But then I think from a bigger perspective, it's always to just do the right thing. So even if somebody is against you and they're after you, you won't give them an excuse. So if I'm a big man or big woman and I have tax to pay, I'll go and pay my tax. Instead of waiting till 5 years when they now come and say, I've defaulted in paying tax, they raise an assessment, penalty, and interest, and they take me to court. Why did I give them the opportunity to do that? So do your part, but we can tell you from what we know, The reforms are far from being politicized. That's not the intention. It's about the Nigerian people.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Joke Kujenya. I write for JK News Media Online. As we were talking earlier, I penned down a question, and it's, okay, we're looking at the planned restructuring of the Federal Inland Revenue Service into Nigerian Revenue Service. Okay, you established that. But looking at the Nigerian situation, how do you guarantee, or how would you guarantee transparency? People that are going to be working there, how transparent are they likely to be? Have they been trained, given orientation that this is a new thing and it has to be operated newly? You know, how would you block revenue leakages and ensure that ordinary Nigerians and small businesses, as you have emphasized over time, are not disproportionately burdened by the new tax regime? You know, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that question. So the FRS has been the one collecting taxes for us for so long. Last year, they collected over 20 trillion. This year, they're already tracking more than 20 trillion. So we have to trust them. They're already doing the work. But beyond trusting them, these new tax laws have put in place more structures, more provisions, and more requirements to hold them to account, to make sure that they do their work with responsibility, that they are more diligent. There are even instances in the new tax law where there are personal liabilities for an officer not doing what they're supposed to do. So we have strengthened the governance, also accountability, their report that they must present now and make public, which they were not doing before. So what I can tell you is, whatever it is that the FRS is doing today, under the new tax law, it will be a better agency from all angles. So stopping leakages is also part of the setup. So if you pay taxes today, it doesn't go to an account that the FRS can control. It goes to the Federation account. And in terms of even issues around fraud and corruption in the tax system, so what we saw in doing our work was that, there were all parties that were guilty, if you want to share blames. There were blames that you could place at the doorstep of the taxpayers who are doing everything not to pay taxes. Some is with a willing tax officer, and then sometimes there's even a tax consultant in the middle facilitating all of that. So these new tax laws have now made provisions to address all the parties. So as a taxpayer, trying to evade your taxes now is more expensive under the new tax law. As a consultant, you are being monitored with work you do. In fact, there is a requirement for a registration of a tax agent, and we monitor what they do on the system. And then for the tax officer, that's even the one that is more risky now. So overall, we think this is taking us in the right direction. Some of the studies that were conducted before, one of it, I was privileged to be the research director for the Fiscal Policy Roundtable under the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. And we conducted this national tax perception study. And it shows that the Nigerian people don't trust government, so they don't want to pay their taxes. Only 17% of Nigerian adults said they will pay their taxes. 83% will do anything but pay. And the reason they gave is they don't trust government. They said they don't get enough for the taxes they pay. And then number 3, they said the system and the process is complex and corrupt. 2 in 3 adults said they were asked to pay a bribe in the process of wanting to pay their taxes. So these are some of the issues we've tried to address under the new tax reform laws.
I'm sorry, I just want to add that there's protection for the citizens. If you have been over-assessed, you don't need to pay any bribe. You just need to file an appeal at the Tax Appeal Tribunal. There's a tribunal for each zone of the Federation, and there is one for Abuja and 3 in Lagos. File an appeal, and it will be looked into, and a proper assessment will be made for you. So you don't need to bribe anybody.
And sorry, also, before you even go to the tax appeal tribunal now, if you have any taxman asking you to, or taxwoman asking you to come and pay bribe, I mean, I told you before, my experience, I've been chairman of State Internal Revenue Service. So if anybody asks you to come and pay bribe, report them to the tax ombud. One of the major functions of the tax ombud is to curb corruption within tax practitioners, tax authorities. So we have any individual, any FRS staff, any state internal revenue staff asking you for bribe, just report them to the tax ombud with evidence, and then the issue will be taken up.
Thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, my name
someone
is...
has the microphone, so we come back to this side.
Okay. My name is Daud Olatunji. I'm the editor of Platform Times. Mr. Chairman, sir, I want to tell you that the feedback we got so far on the 5% fuel surcharge, people believe that that statement is hanging and it's political, it is political, that it will be implemented when the Minister of Finance gives it. They believe that, like you have given a kind of a specific date for the implementation of the new tax law, why can't the federal government do the same? They believe that it could be done tomorrow. So it's just a political statement. I wanted to just... And second one, sir, on the harmonization of taxes, it's a good news to many people. Especially, let's take Ogun State, where I reside, as a case study. The local government will bring its own taxes, state will do, federal will also do. And when you now raise that issue that you are going to harmonize, people were happy. But the clause you have given us today, that, there are some taxes that are included in Constitution. So it makes your committee to be kind of powerless. Will you call for a quick amendment of Constitution so that the issue of harmonization of taxes will also go with the new tax law? And lastly, in Nigeria, we have diverse culture and languages. This effort seemed elitist. Now you ask us to go to a website or do stuff. How about people who are at the grassroots? And statistics shows that we have more Nigerians in these rural areas. What is the campaign strategy to take this information, knowledge, to the people in grassroots? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for those excellent questions. On the surcharge, you're right. The language in the law means it can be introduced anytime. But you also must have heard the finance minister, who is the person with the power to trigger it. He had a press conference and said, one, there's no drafts, there's no plan to do one, because you should give it to the finance minister that is responsible enough to see when it will be appropriate to do so. My personal view has always been that the surcharge can be introduced at a point when it will not affect the pump prices, either because Naira has appreciated by 5% or more, or because the price of crude oil in the international market has come down, or a combination of the two. So in which case, you pay the same amount, but there is now money available to fix roads. All of us will benefit if we can fix roads in Nigeria, and that will stimulate activities. One thing that is certain is that this surcharge cannot be introduced secretly, because the language in the law is that it has to be published in the official gazette. So I'll just challenge you to just follow. You can even subscribe to the official publication. So when they issue a gazette, you get an alert. So you can quickly tell Nigerians they want to introduce it. So, why I cannot give you a date, because I'm not the finance minister, but I think that this explanation should suffice. On harmonization, yes, we will certainly call for a speedy amendment of the Constitution, but we also know that realistically, it's not a speedy process, because you need to have consultation around, which the National Assembly is currently doing. In the meantime, what we are working on is that we believe that state and local governments, if they are given the power to collect something in the Constitution, there's an implied power not to collect it. If a local government says we are not collecting wheelbarrow tax, I don't think anybody will take them to court and say, I have not collected this year. So the work we are doing now is to see how we can collaborate and get their buy-in to implement a regime in the interim, pending when the constitution is amended, that says all these long lists of taxes, we will collect it as a single tax and apply the rate on different taxpayers in a way that it's fair, not asking the poor people to pay heavy amounts of taxes. So that process is ongoing, and we are optimistic that it will yield results sooner rather than later. On the grassroots, I don't want to reveal most of the things we are working on, so members of our committee are aware of them. We have our big plan for how to take this to the grassroots. I agree with you, everything we are doing here now. My grandma in the village does not even know what we're talking about. So we know there are people who are not able to connect with this our frequency. But this our frequency is the starting point, is the power of many. So when you write, and that's why for the award that we're introducing, we're even saying languages, local languages are acceptable. Feel free to speak your language and connect with the people. And then that will be eligible as well. So all of us have to work together. In one of our committee's meeting, we're saying to ourselves that if we go to one local government, like if we want to go to all the local governments, there are 774 of them. If you go to one local government per day, it will still be 2 years, and we will not have gone round. And even just going to one local government does not mean you've spoken to everybody there. So it just gives you the size of the country, that nobody can do it alone. But all of us can do it together.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sam Wosu. I'm the editor of Environment Africa. It's an energy development and infrastructure online platform. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. A couple of quick questions. So, you just spoke about some issues regarding harmonization. However, in terms of compliance across federal government agencies, especially revenue-generating agencies, that is one aspect. And then between the federal government and the states, how is this committee going to be able to ensure that they comply to these reforms? Because we do know that it's one thing to actually put up a fiscal policy and all that. It's another thing for the agencies themselves to buy into it and start complying, and also for the states to accept that they were going to do this. So how are you going to ensure that? Secondly, for some specialized sectors, I saw the special industries, the special sectors in the arts, like the oil and gas industry. We have some tax rates, legacy terms basically, that are sort of ring-fenced, the production sharing contracts and so on and so forth. How are you going to ensure that they are brought into this tax reform? Because normally you can't touch those rates except there's a conversion or there's an event, and then they have the law on their side. And then thirdly, in the have the economic development tax incentives framework, you have these minimum thresholds for industries, aquaculture, music production, renewable energy, crude oil refining, and so on. But then I see that some of these rates don't seem to be representative of what is going on right now, across these sectors. For renewable energy manufacturing and production, you have 100 billion naira as a threshold. And then from crude oil refining, you have 100 billion naira. That doesn't compute to the reality on ground. Because as I speak with you, I challenge anyone to tell me if there's any company in Nigeria in the renewable energy sector that can do 10 billion, even half of that in renewable energy production or manufacturing. They don't manufacture, they don't produce, they just assemble. So how does that help that industry? Because if you are looking at incentives, then that means you need to base these incentives on the realities on ground. But this seems to just be, I'm sorry to use the word, just a parachute kind of thing. So please, how does this all work out? Thank you so much.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you for asking. So on the first one, around compliance by revenue agencies as well as state, for revenue agencies of the federal government, so we're working with them to harmonize so they move their revenue collection function away from them and they can focus on their primary activities. Many of those agencies have establishment laws that empower them to do what they do. So you would understand that it would also take some time. For states, they are our principals as well. They are government. They're the powers that be. So we can't compel them to do anything, but they're on board because they also buy into these reforms. In fact, when Mr. President set up our committee, the first place we went was the National Economic Council to seek their buy-in and adoption of our committee, which they did. So we believe that in our ongoing engagements, we'll iron out areas of differences and concerns, and they will be able to adopt. Some of the things we're doing internally are regulations to domesticate some of these implementation at state level, where we even expect that some of the states would enact them into law at the state level. So that process is ongoing. How do we bring legacy provisions like oil and gas on board? We try not to upset the Petroleum Industry Act because it's also a fairly new law, so we don't create uncertainties for businesses. But what we've done is to move the fiscal provisions of the PIA into the new tax law. So it's part of the Nigerian Tax Act without altering things that are industry specific. Of course, there are many provisions affecting other companies that would also affect them. For example, on CIT, some of the companies pay CIT under the PIA before they now add hydrocarbon tax to it. So, this is actually one sector where we had one of the most frequent engagements, as you would imagine. They also bring a lot of FDI, so we need to make sure that we strike a good balance between government take and the investors' returns. On the minimum thresholds for investment for economic development incentive, that's a very good observation. Those amounts are deliberately high. The reason is because there is this thing about us in Nigeria that is slightly different from what you find in most countries. Nigerians love to run and manage their companies alone. We want to be the CEO of a 2 million naira business than join and be 2% shareholder of a 1 billion naira business. So what we've done is, of course, we know that if you're small, sometimes partnering with someone is the last thing on your mind. So we've created incentive for small businesses. We leave the middle, and then we create incentive for large businesses. We're hoping that those small renewable energy companies will come together because that way they have even more strengths, not only to benefit from the incentive, but to even speak to partners abroad and command respect. It could be to do with intellectual property. It could be getting a partner from China to come here, bring, $1 billion. Why can't they bring that? The market is here. So your point is valid, but this is not me saying that it's not a valid point. It's saying that this is the thought process that led us to that large amount. We also don't want to overburden the regulators doing the approvals with too many applications. So there can be some level of control and sanity. Of course, government can always review and reduce or increase the rates, after a few years.
All right, thank you. Toba Ilori is my name. I write for Inside Business Abuja. And I want us to talk about sustainability, Mr. Chairman, and also talk about the bottleneck. Now, according to the new tax laws, there's a rule that says you can report to the ombuds and they have something to do. But we've not talked about the layers in a people's issue. So I'm reporting to A and B seek a partnership. I am the person who wants to pay tax. They are not responding. No response. Who else can I report to? Now, because I want us to look at this, in starting, it is sweet. In sustainability, when it becomes a act and culture with us, and I report to the tribunal, and the tribunal is not responding, who else are we running to? And so I want us to assure the House on how to solve issue like that.
All right, I'll address the tax ombudsman. I'll ask my brother to speak to the one on the tribunal. So the tax ombudsman has been set up with your concern in mind. So in the law, there are time frame. I think the longest time for them to respond is 14 days. So they can't just take your complaint and then go and relax. No. In fact, they're meant to turn it around like a day or two. The complex one are the ones where they have the liberty of 14 days. So let's say you now report to the ombuds and they don't do anything about it. There's also an accountability framework for that ombud to be accountable to the National Assembly and to the Nigerian people. They will report, I think it's quarterly, to the Nigerian people, and it will be online, including how quickly they resolve issues. So if you now see that your issue was not attended to and they've not included it in their report, you are a journalist. Write about it. Some of us are there hanging in to find those issues because the ombuds, the head of that unit, is going to be appointed by the president. Can also be removed. They don't have a guaranteed job. And we're also confident that whoever eventually has that responsibility will be responsible enough to know that the sole purpose of why they have been appointed and given that important role is to protect taxpayers' rights. So we do not think that you raise an issue and people will then ignore it under the structure that has been created. For the Tax Appeal Tribunal?
Yes, please. The Tax Appeal Tribunal, the rules guiding the tribunal, the procedures, recognizes the fact that taxes are paid yearly. So there's a need to resolve tax issues as quickly as possible. And so tax matters that come to the tribunal are expected to be resolved within a period of 6 months. If you go to the regular courts, it can take some time. And that's why the tribunal is there, is cheap, is easier, and we're allowed to use rules to mediate to ensure that these issues are resolved very quickly. So any matter before the tribunal doesn't take time.
Next.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Perpetua Fasami Peter from New Central. Actually, two of the questions I had in mind have been answered, but this is a personal one. I just want to understand. Okay, so I used to have LIRS tax ID, but on the 22nd of September, I got an email from noreply@jtb.gov.ng telling me, please find here your new taxpayer identification number. Then it goes on to give me the number. Does that nullify my LIRS tax ID? Is it in line with the tax identification you're talking about? That's what I want to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, you're already a privileged taxpayer, so you're ahead of so many people. So, you know what we said is we want to get to a point where we do away with all the multiple tax numbers and just have one. So that harmonized one is being done by the Joint Tax Board because they're the one who cut across. So you're already ahead. So many people would experience what you're experiencing now, where they replace the existing number with a national one. The reason why the process is still a bit slow is because not all the internal revenue services across the states have developed their system to speak to the new centralized one. So Lagos clearly is ahead of many states. So nothing to worry about. You should actually be, you are a precious taxpayer to them.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shola Bello, publisher of Business Standards. Your effort is commended. All that your committee is doing is welcomed by a lot of us because we also go to other clients to see what development is like. However, I'm worried. I'm worried in the sense that I'm eager to pay my tax, but do you have anything that will link the tax payment to development?
You know, we had a session in Abuja for the organized private sector. We had one in Lagos. We had another one in Abuja. And a gentleman came and said to me that I didn't even know that people can export kilishi. He's exporting kilishi to more than 40 countries. He's running a business where he's doing very well. And he said he never paid tax before, that he used his money to send about 6,000 kids to school in his community. And he said after he listened to us, he decided that he would be paying taxes. So he came and asked the question you asked now and said, can I give the assurance that when he pays, government will use it to take care of the kids? Even me, I couldn't answer that. But that's the destination we must get to. There is no way we can say it's okay that governments, will not spend our money well, so let's not pay. That's giving up on our country. The only option is we pay and we hold government to account. In these new tax reform laws, you will see provisions all over the place trying to hold government to account. But the law themselves will not implement themselves. So we have to take steps. And that could be huge, triggering requests for information. I know sometimes they ignore those things. And I've said also that there are some organizations like budgets. I'm a big fan of budgets. Budgets will go to local government and do video and take picture and say, this project has been repeated 10 times. This one, it's a lie. It is not this person that did it. But Nigerians are not paying attention. You see some of their posts, 15 likes, right? If we can educate ourselves and put pressure, politicians respond to numbers. If they see a million people tweeting, they will address the issue. So I believe that the process and the journey now is starting. We just need to sustain it so that when we pay, government use it for our purposes. It is far cheaper for 1 million households to pay tax and get electricity than for 1 million households to buy generator and fuel it.
Just add, sir, and that I'm excited with all the debates around the tax laws. I'm sure if you look back, there has never been a time in Nigeria that we have had this kind of interest in tax. The various finance acts that we enact every year from 2018, 19, 20, it just comes out and people report on it, no debates. But in this case now, there's this huge debate that is going on. We're here. So, and I believe that now, with all the amount of information and interest of people will now start asking questions. What are we doing with this money? Because our committee, we have done the job, we have everything, we're passing over to the people we will implement. But now, the press will now start asking, 1 year after, okay, all this money, what happened? And that's what the chairman was alluding to. So there's a lot of interest now. So I will wait for you to sustain that interest over the coming years about what government is doing with the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
But you asked a question before.
No, I've not asked before.
Okay. All right. Please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you for the insightful session. My name is Ukamoka Syriakus. I'm an economist. My question is on the new capital gains tax, particularly regarding its impact on entrepreneurship and investment. So on the new capital gains tax, I understand the need to balance and align it with the personal income tax rate to encourage people to be more productive with their capital, venture into entrepreneurship and create jobs, right, rather than rely on solely on passive investments. However, this increase in the CGT could also discourage entrepreneurship and investment because it raises cost of capital, it risks capital flight to other African cities with a lower capital gains tax, like maybe Kenya, even South Africa and Ghana. They have less capital gains tax. And it may also increase borrowing costs for businesses. So I'm wondering, right, to ensure a fair policy balance, are there any special capital gains tax rates or thresholds that are planned for, say, startups, MSMEs, and long-term investors to cushion this effect? And then a related question also, what transitional or grandfathering rules exist for exits or disposals that span the law change? Say people who maybe purchased assets or made some investments that were acquired before June 2025 when this law was enacted. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question about the capital gains tax and the impact on businesses, cost of funding. Maybe just to explain it. The capital gains tax we're talking about here is capital gains tax that apply to some assets, just a few of them. It's mostly land and building. And then to shares when you sell them. For a company, if they sell their own shares and they sell it 1 million times and they sell 1 billion naira or 200 billion naira, they don't have any capital gains tax to pay. So it's not a tax on the business. It's only the investor. If an investor wants to exit, they have shares they bought at a certain amount, 10 naira, they want to sell it, and they sell it at, say, 12 naira, 15 naira. They could even sell it at 9 naira. This tax law says if that seller is selling not more than 150 million naira in a year, they will not pay tax. Which means 99.99% of people in the stock market will not worry about this tax because they don't even have, how many people sell 150 million naira in a year? Now, the people who sell more than that are seen to be people who are wealthy. And because we want the tax system to be progressive, we say they should pay. But if they don't want to pay, there's another provision that says when they sell, they should use it to buy another share in the Nigerian capital market. So you can keep reinvesting it and not have to pay the tax. So that anytime you sell only enough that will not make you cross the threshold to pay tax. And for businesses, when they reorganize, you move one company to another one, you mark them together, all of those are exempted. So the people that are likely to be impacted are the institutional investors like PFAs are also exempted. They're not paying, even if they sell 200 billion naira. So the few investors that will be impacted are the foreign investors who maybe brought dollars, buy shares in the capital market, and they want to take their money out. So they usually do more than 150 million naira. So for them, they will pay the tax if they haven't reinvested. But guess what? If they don't pay the tax in Nigeria, they will pay the tax in their home country. So when we ask them to pay in Nigeria, for many of them, it's not even an additional tax. For example, I was speaking to some of the investors in London recently. Nigeria has a double tax treaty with the UK. When they pay all that tax in Nigeria, they get the full credit in the UK. So we don't think that, investors decide to invest or not to invest because of the exit tax. They will look at the entire gamut of taxes and returns. When I invest, how profitable would that company be? If the company is made profitable by the tax return, by the tax reform, then the value of my shares goes up. You can see the capital market in the past 2 years alone. That's more than doubled, right? So if I invested 1 million and it's now worth 2 million, and I'm exiting and they collect 25% on the 1 million, I'm still better off. I have 750 left. So I think the potential for growth and the potential for any risk-adjusted return that is attractive and competitive is going to be the key driver. And by the way, it's not like we increase the rate. We just harmonize it with income tax rates. For some taxpayers, it means 0%. For some taxpayers, it means 25%, and something in between. Okay, and then you raised the question about what about, what they did before this new tax law? What are we going to do about that? There's nothing specifically stated in the law about what happens before the new laws. We're working on the regulations and guidelines, and this is where we also need input from stakeholders. So if we see compelling reasons, we always love data, like analyze why this is, not fair or why it's fair, and then, committee members, if you attend any of our meetings, you think we're in the university with very serious practicals, we will take flip charts and be analyzing and argue. At the end of the day, we try to make our decision in the best interest of the country. Yes, we're open to receiving suggestions. We'll also share with you, there's a link. We actually have created a survey for this implementation where you can give us your input and recommendations. So we'll share that with you as well. you can fill it, you can share with other people as well to share their inputs, because that way we're able to collate, because whatever you say now, we try to note it down, but we may not be able to remember to take it forward. When you put it in that form, we capture it and work on it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chamaka from Tax Matters. I must applaud the committee for the work, for the job well done. Some of my questions has already been asked, but I just want to know, with regards to getting agencies and organizations and some of the stakeholders in working with silos, I want to know, because this really goes down to the people on the grassroots, would there be measures, or are there measures in place to see that those who will really work against what the provision or the reforms already has been put in place to do will be, maybe something like a penalty? I just want to, because if there are no penalties at times, some people may get away with some things and feel, okay, the way we have TAUs collecting taxes in the past, that's, okay, I can do this and I can do it and I'm free. Nothing happens. Is there anything like a penalty or anything put in place to ensure that such doesn't repeat itself?
All right. So if I can just plead for us to finish in the next 6 minutes. So if you have any questions, just keep it brief. And let's try and wrap up. It's already past 2. Our plan was to finish at 2 o'clock. And there are people online as well. Okay. So to your question, yes, we are working with the implementing agencies. We spent 2 days about 2 weeks ago with the Joint Task Board. And there's not a single person there who was not in support of the reform. So we don't think that the agencies will sabotage the process. But even if any agency wants to sabotage the process, we already have the framework to deal with that, because nobody owns any agency. At the end of the day, Mr. President or whoever appointed them can make a decision if they are coming in the way of our collective progress.
To Nigeria Info. My question is, how do you monitor, how you plan to monitor freelancers? So first of all, freelancers who don't file their tax returns, and then other freelancers who earn money in virtual accounts abroad and don't bring them into Nigeria, but just spend with their foreign cards, spend as they need.
Yeah, thank you. So freelancers, content creators, they earn money online. The primary responsibility in the tax law is called self-assessment. So everybody knows what they are doing. So you're supposed to report yourself and then calculate your tax and pay if you're above the threshold. If you don't, there is a system validation that has been created where the system piece information together, including information that is available internationally. In fact, I think about 2 weeks ago, Nigeria got approval for an international tax code, which aligns us with the rest of the world. And Nigeria has signed an exchange of information with more than 100 countries. We actually have information already about what many Nigerians are doing abroad. So if you have something abroad, we also know about it. In addition to that, one of the things we've done in the past that has worked is, if you earn money online, the people that are paying you are not many. I'm sure most of them are less than 10. Spotify, Google, Facebook. So those guys are people we've reached out to before in the past. For example, you will notice that where there's VAT, they are collecting Nigerian VAT for us. We can also go to them and say, these are Nigerian people, they earn income, and this income is liable to tax. Can you give us the reports? So we live in a world where it's hard to hide. I think we should all just do the right thing and then hold government to account.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. You started by telling us that context is everything. And I believe that it is always hard to like a tax collector. Nobody likes a tax collector. So on that basis, I want to say that the president is doing something noble. But there's a video we always watch. Widen the net, the basket, to collect tax. You collect more tax. So that impression sank in the minds of average Nigerian that he is coming to collect tax. On the basis of what you said, which of the tax has he introduced? So before introducing anything, we already believe he's going to do it. He will introduce new taxes. So my question is the issue of derivation on the VAT instead of that of the population. You know that they're not kicked against it, that it will come from the derivation point. That is on the way, by the wayside. Another one is that there's this news that's going around. Sex workers and agboros. Sex workers and agboros. So the issue is, you say there's no new tax. How will they pay? We don't know if they've been paying before. So please address this, sir.
All right, so I just knew that was going to come up. You're right. People don't normally like the tax collector, but that should be our best friend. You know, they say in this world, nothing is certain but taxes and debts. You know that if we all refuse to pay our taxes, we will pay tax. When government start printing money because they can't collect tax, the money in your pocket loses value. So the money they printed, that 30 trillion they printed, the money in your pocket has lost at least 20%. That's like a 20% tax. But you won't complain because nobody is forcing it out of your hand. But your 10 naira is now worth 8 naira. So it's in the interest of society for the tax system to work. It's at the heart of the social contract. Because that way, government is funded in an organized and orderly manner rather than printing money which is disorderly and punishes poor people the most. On VAT sharing formula, you know, this is one of the areas where we spent most times trying to explain and engaging. And the people who own the VAT, the state, the governors, told us what they want, and that's what we have implemented. So we have no objection, we have no issues with it. We think that development and progress is gradual, so we'll get there. Sex workers, agberos, you know that what I said is everybody has the responsibility to self-declare, right? That's the first obligation in the law. The other thing I said is these new tax laws are not imposing taxes on anyone who was not taxable before. So the existing laws we have already require that if you earn income, you pay tax on it. So if I'm agbero, which is I'm calling people to enter the vehicle, and I get paid, how is that different from the waiter in this hotel? How is it different from an accountant? How is it different from a factory worker? So we cannot now say that agberos are exempted from tax. You know, I know the sex workers thing is being sensationalized. There are court judgments all over the world to say that when it comes to tax matters, there are no questions about morality or legality. The tax law, otherwise, if the tax law exempts immoral activities and illegal activities, I'll just make my work become illegal so I don't pay tax. So around the world, the tax authorities and the tax laws tax you on your income, whether it is legal or not, whether it is moral or not. In fact, the IRS in the US, they had a notice that says, if you steal, you must declare it for tax purposes. Imagine having to go to the taxman and say, I stole. For them, they know it's not everybody that still that will disclose, but they have one more law to hold you when they find you. When they find you, you know that going through the court process can be, in Nigeria, can be 10 years. The taxman collects his money immediately because already, is this your asset? You said yes. Then you have no paid tax. Let's take the tax first before we find out whether you stole the money or not. You know, so this is an international practice, and it's also not new in Nigeria. So this became a public conversation because in one of my presentations, I had said that. So it wasn't that it was being introduced afresh. Not different from if the agbero does not declare and the journalist does not declare, how do we find out? It's the system validation, because when you earn money, if you don't tell us, you do three things with the money you earn. You either spend, or you save, or you invest. All of that you do with third parties, and it can be validated.
Thank you. My name is Odioko Andrew. I published the index news. My question is on the price you just introduced for journalists. I'm surprised that nobody has asked questions about it. Is it a one-off or a continuous thing? Secondly, if it's not continuous, that means it's transactional. You just want to use it to push the introduction of these new tax policies. Secondly, the price, is it tax-free or... That question is important because it's also relevant in other sectors. When you receive gifts, inheritance, are they taxable? And I live in an estate where you have, we'll call ourselves neighbors, but we all know that neighbors consist of tenants and landlords. Now, when a tenant pays his rent, how is he going to ensure that that thing is taken care of tax-wise? And the landlord that receives, because it's been a debate, how are they going to be protected? Because when the rent comes, we've not spoken of whether the landlord makes repairs on his house or not. So I'm trying to get clarification on this. Thank you.
Thank you for those interesting questions. So on this award, you will note that my committee is not a permanent agency. So in fact, we're even discussing it while we're here. We're in a hurry to complete our work and then move the institutional capacity to the agencies that will run with it. Ministry of Finance is the leadership on this implementation. We have the Nigerian Revenue Service, Joint Revenue Board, Fiscal Responsibility Commission. So those agencies and institutions are already working with us. So we're going to be out of the stage sooner rather than later. So we cannot commit to anything that is longer than the life of the committee itself. But we're already discussing it to say that, and I wish I don't have to put it out publicly. So we're going to try and speak to some of these institutions that I mentioned to see if any of them will adopt it. While I was in the private sector, this is something I personally believe in. For more than 10 years, I ran the capacity enhancement workshop for journalists, and then we added the awards, which we did for like 7 years. So the idea is to sustain it. But let's even say it's not sustained. As a journalist, what do you have to lose, right? You do the right thing that you should normally do, even if nobody is recognizing you. But then on top of it, somebody recognizes you. Even if it's one-off, I think it's still worth it. But we'll try and make it sustained. Would it be tax-free? It will not. There's a provision in the new tax law, and I'm not sure exactly what it says. I know there's something about when you get an award for education related. So maybe this might, but I don't want to give you any promises, so it will depend on what the law says. Gifts, are they taxable? No, gifts are not taxable. Inheritance is not taxable. But if you now pay somebody for a service and you call it a gift, it will not make it exempt. Because I saw on social media, somebody said, from now on, when you pay my fees, put gifts in the description. I said, Nigerians, eh? So something is not a gift because you say it's a gift. Something is a gift if it's no exchange of value to the person giving. Right? Once there's an exchange of value, that's your gift. Will disregard it and tax it. Rent information. Actually, if you own a house and you collect rent, it's your duty to report the rent and take care of your expenses. So the law actually permits you. Your rent is 10 million you collected from all your tenants. You repaired it, you pay insurance. The insurance of house is now compulsory. You paid insurance, you did this, you fixed the plumbing. Deduct it yourself. Just keep your receipt. The balance of 10 million is now 4 million. It's on 4 million you should pay tax. But if you don't see anything, 2-3 years down the line, the tax man comes, he will not take all those your excuse of deductions anymore. So the law already recognizes that expenses are incurred to earn income, and therefore they should be tax deductible. So this is not punishing anyone.
Please,
All right.
because we are all hungry, let me just make it short.
Yeah, we are hungry, yes.
Nigeria has had tax reforms, 1991, 96, 2004, 2010. Then the one for Buhari 2023 till now, and that has been, all of these tax reforms have collapsed. What two measures are you putting in place that this one is going to, is not go beyond our current government, even if they come in 2027, so we are looking at 2030, what measures are in place to see that this tax reform does not collapse? Or is it going to be that when another government now comes, they will now say they are cancelling it all again? I don't understand. Thank you.
Yeah, you know that these reforms, even though instituted by these governments, it goes beyond them. This is about us. It's about the whole country. That's why you see, when they were passing the law, when they were debating it, you had political parties from all places. We had a debate with Nigerians who don't even agree with this government. We have those that agree with them. We have international community, Nigeria in the diaspora. This is bigger than everyone. That I can tell you. And I wouldn't say all the tax reforms collapsed. Like when we did the National Tax Policy in 2017, it led to the Annual Finance Act. And to be honest, some of the problems were solved with the Finance Act. Now we have new laws that have been enacted. For somebody to come and repeal them and do it easily, it will be almost impossible. You need to convince all the lawmakers, convince the Nigerian people, organized private sector, even the journalists. I don't think that will happen. I'm very optimistic that we are moving forward.
Okay. Yes, sorry. Okay. Sorry.
So we take you as the last question, and then online we take 3 questions. 3 questions, okay.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Taiwo Oyedele from Tech Cabal. So I have a couple of startup-related questions. Was hoping people would actually ask, but nobody asked. Yeah. So we need clarity on, I know the new the new tax laws. I know there's a part of the Startup Act that it repeals. I would need clarity on that part because I know it had to do with incentives for startups under the Nigerian Startup Act. So yeah, kind of like clarity for that. And also, how would you define a resident in context of a freelancer? Now, I know you have to stay in Nigeria for a couple of days, about 182 days or 184 days. But what would that context as a freelancer be? Then also, I know you've spoken about this a couple of times, but still not clear on how crypto assets will be taxed. Is it going to be taxed under the capital gain tax? What format is it going to be like? Then, yeah, I think for now that works.
Yeah, fantastic questions. On the Startup Act, we have the Startup Act that provide a lot of incentives that we have to give credit to the stakeholders that work on it. What we did was, and this is not peculiar to the Startup Act, we went everywhere in all the different laws and pulled the incentives together so people can see it. It's harmonized, it's easy to access. So for the Startup Act, it was even one law where we had a soft spot for it. We didn't reduce anything that the Startup Act already gave. We enhanced it in some cases. So we put, for example, it gave pioneer status. So we bring that into the economic development incentive. So what I can tell you is go through the new laws and you see the provisions relating to startup and you see that the incentives have been preserved, if not enhanced. How do we determine the residence for a freelancer? We also have new provisions in the new tax law that are quite attractive. We changed the rules for determining when a person becomes liable to tax in Nigeria because we want to be able to attract digital nomads. I'll tell you one thing. During the COVID-19 problem, at the height of it, I was still in the private sector advising businesses and taxpayers. And many Nigerians reached out to me from outside Nigeria, most of them UK, US, and they said, we are working from home in America. Why can't we just come to Nigeria and work from home there so we are with our families? You know, that's a common sense thing to do. And they would have brought a lot of dollars to come and be spending while they're here. When we analyze the law, many of them could not come. Because just coming to Nigeria to work physically for your employer remotely creates a problem for your employer in Nigeria. We've removed that problem now. So, as a freelancer, if you are physically here, do your freelancing, you pay tax. But if you are outside Nigeria, freelancing into Nigeria and other places, you are not here. If anybody is paying you from Nigeria, they may have obligation to deduct withholding tax. But the regime we now have is one of the most attractive and most competitive globally for anything you are doing online. For crypto assets, thanks for asking. So the current law we have, before the new law that will take effect in January 2026, will tax you if you make gains on crypto and totally ignore you when you make losses. Actually, ignore your losses and tax you only on gains. And of course, we believe that is not fair. It's not a crime to invest in crypto. So the new law says, take your losses, net off against your gains. If you end up with a net gain, you're not different from the person that bought, land or bought REITs or bought another assets.